You're watching Open Agenda. Here's our host, Joe White.
Welcome to Open Agenda. I'm your host, Joe White. In the studio with me is our executive producer, Joe Venosa. Joe, thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Joe. How are you?
Wonderful. I tell you, fall's a great time of the year, right?
Humidity's gone.
Yeah, finally, yeah. It can even be hot, but it's really not terrible.
That's right.
So we have a county council meeting this coming Tuesday, which is October 1st. It's a 6 o'clock meeting in room 301. There are some hearings for some grants that will be accepted by the county executive for the airport, for Arthur W. Purdue Stadium. But one of the topics that's on this county council agenda is regarding the Ross building, the Horizon tax credit. There's two of them. One's an enterprise and one's for the subsidy for housing. I'd like for you to speak a little bit about that. I know you have a better sense being a city resident as well.
Yeah, we've experienced or endured, depending on your perspective, this issue for quite a while, because the Horizons program, to sort of put it in layman's terms, is basically a subsidy for development or developers. And really what this pertains to specifically is one particular building, right? The Ross, which is a project that has been developed for the past few years that has put a sort of high-rise building in downtown Salisbury. And at play right now is the future of that project or that program in regards to the county's role in it.
Okay. Well, I think their resolution is whether or not they're going to extend this deadline for an application. And really, we're not 100% sure. So, I mean, I don't want to act like we understand. In fact, that's one of the reasons why I want to go to the meeting to get more information.
Yeah, it will be interesting because I think there's some, some people have expressed a desire to maybe have a work session about it. We don't know if that'll happen or not, but this county council meeting will at the very least give us a sense of what will happen or what could happen, what are the council members' views of it, and it'd be interesting to see if they are able to do an actual open work session to see what the county executive's office feels about it.
And actually, we need both.
Yeah.
I think often we get classified as some sort of mouthpiece for the county council. Obviously, we go and speak out against things that they're considering all the time.
All the time, yeah.
But what we really love is that we are allowed to exercise our right to do that.
Yeah, and to see it.
And to see it with our own eyes or on PAC 14. Mm-hmm. But we just really don't know what we don't know. Mm-hmm. Because if this tax credit, whether you agree with it or not, is due, then it should be paid. Mm-hmm. But if it was in fact a missed deadline or maybe there's some other piece that wasn't done, then really I think the public is deserving of an explanation by all of their elected leaders.
Correct.
Just our county council is the only one who has open meetings. So
go figure.
That's where we'll be, right?
Open agenda.
So I did have a chance to go to the Parks and Rec meeting on Tuesday, September 24th. This meeting was great. There was a lot there. And I don't want to go through everything, but there's a lot of really cool projects that are happening, whether you're talking about Cove Road Beach, with Tipton, Arthur W. Purdue Stadium. Some of it, like Arthur W. Purdue Stadium, is being funded and run by the Maryland Stadium Authority to the tune of $28 million. But Cove Road Beach, which you and I have heard in the community, there's a lot of questions. They're actually having a public meeting on September 30th at 6 o'clock at the West Side Community Center, which is down in Bivalve. Really encourage anyone who has questions to go to that meeting, ask your questions, see the renderings. When Mike and I were down filming for our segment for Cove Road, we could see the construction. It was really more of the preparation. I think now if you go to this meeting, you'll see what the finished product's going to look like.
Yeah, that's great.
The Folk Festival is another great event. It was just last weekend. I know you were there. I stopped by with you on Friday. Can you talk a little bit about the Folk Festival?
Sure. Well, first off, my 8-year-old son and I jumped up and touched every sign that was on the side of the street. So, we accomplished our goal on that front. But the city accomplished its goal too because they really had a fantastic 3-day festival. If you recall, the end of the National Folk Festival, which Salisbury hosted for 3 years, then transitioned to a smaller scaled state-based one. So Salisbury is now the host city of the Maryland Folk Festival. And I believe this is the third year that we had it. And last year, the second year that we hosted it, as a city. We just had awful weather. It was, it was coming in Friday night, and people kind of went there because they sort of assumed that we weren't going to have it on Saturday and Sunday, and they were correct.
Yeah.
It was basically 2 days of 20 inches of rain.
I think we had remnants of a tropical system
it
blowing
was
through.
it was incredibly heavy rain, and so
It was a good weekend for ducks.
it was. They were happy. They didn't perform, but they were happy. And then ultimately this year we had phenomenal weather. We had a great turnout, some incredible national and local acts. Again, not to plug any particular group, but we have some incredible local bands, especially through the AMP program, the Academy of Music Performance.
Nice.
And so we got to see what our youth-based musical groups and activities can do.
Well, and, at the Folk Festival, you were out there, and I joined you Friday, passing out information about Question A.
Yep.
Obviously, we encourage people to consider voting yes for Question A.
Yeah.
But but more importantly, I think you had a chance to speak with the public about their questions, their concerns. Right?
It was great. By my count, at least from my end, I hand out about 150 brochures, and interestingly enough, there were a few individuals who, I guess, had either initially received against Question A signs or were going to vote against Question A. And then after discussion, after giving them some information, just talking about where we're coming from, they actually returned their signs and essentially, informed us that their intention is to vote for Question A.
However folks end up voting, we just really want them to go out and get as much information as possible.
Yeah.
Get a chance to vote with their heart.
Yep.
Obviously, early voting starts October 24th through the 31st. And then we have, of course, the election the first Tuesday in November.
Yeah.
So, we're kind of coming into that part of the year.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So speaking of Question A and folks in the community, we're going to have a chance to sit down with Mark Carroll, who's the director of Parks and Rec from Sharptown. We're going over some of the Parks and Rec stuff, and he's very active. He runs a large scale youth and adult soccer program out in Sharptown. But just last year, he really ran into a lot of roadblocks with the county executive with regard to the West Metro Core Park, which actually sits in the Tri-Town district. Some of the planning wasn't initiated through the towns of Hebron, Mardell, and Sharptown. They kind of pushed back, and really interesting story. And he talks about all the positive of the program, also those challenges, maybe even some of the threats he had. So
yeah, it seems like it was a cautionary tale that luckily had a good ending for him. But
this time it
nevertheless,
did, yeah. And we saw that with Mike Goldberg. Luckily there's some video evidence that dispelled that. But also here, he had such a large following from the community on the west side. He does such good work with the young kids out there.
Yeah.
But I encourage everyone to listen to his story.
Yeah.
So stick around. When we come back, I'm going to have a chance to sit down with Mark Carroll from Sharptown Parks and Rec. We're going to find out a little bit about the history of Parks and Rec in Sharptown, the current challenges they're facing, the threat that they had last year, and really some of the bright future out there. Stick with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Open Agenda. I'm your host, Joe White. With me in the studio is the Director of Parks and Recreation in Sharptown, Mark Carroll. Mark, thanks for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Feels weird to be on this side of the wall.
I bet it does. It's a little different, a little brighter on this side.
Yeah, it is. A little hotter, too.
So tell me a little bit about yourself and what your position is with the Parks and Recreation in Sharptown.
Well, I actually didn't grow up in Sharptown. I grew up in Salisbury. I'm a transplant. Moved there about 8 years ago. And right around that time, I decided to do things that I was passionate about and things that made me happy. And I, stopped reading the news as much as I was doing, and I tried to focus on positive things. So I looked for opportunities, and when an opportunity came up to join the Recreation and Parks and coach a soccer team, I took it.
Why are you so passionate about youth recreational soccer?
Well, I played a lot when I was younger, and a lot of my fond memories from when I was younger revolved around that. And back to the whole positivity thing, I thought it would be something that I could help share with others.
Do you think it really shaped your childhood and maybe even propelled you into what you do now as an adult?
Yeah, absolutely. There were lessons that I learned in practices and games that stuck with me, and being able to have an organized event that you could get to with your friends and see people on a regular basis. It was great for me, especially because at the time we lived out in a farm on Daxborough Road, not near much else. So
what's your proudest accomplishment with the Sharptown Parks and Rec?
that's it's not anything that anyone formally recognized, but I'm really happy that I have set myself up in a position to see things from a perspective that not very many other people get to see. For example, I was refereeing a soccer game. That's what I do when I don't have enough refs. I will referee the game and volunteer and do it. And so I was standing there about 20 feet away from my daughter when she scored her first goal.
Nice.
And I was right there. I was watching the whole thing. I wasn't distracted. I got to see the whole thing. So that was amazing. And then, even further on, I created an over 16 league, and now I get to play soccer with my son, who's a phenomenal defender, and I'm a goalie. So
Okay.
it's
So it's his job to protect you.
it is, and it's a really interesting change of positioning, and it was kind of weird at first, but I like it, and it I don't know, it's a lot of fun. It's the most fun I have with soccer now.
Now, I think those are proud accomplishments, but I also think you're being just a little modest. I have here that you were the 2018 Youth Coach of the Year in Wycomico County. And then even in 2019, you were the Youth Sports Administrator of the Year.
Yeah, that is true. That is
Okay.
true.
So your passion has led you to help other kids in the same way maybe youth sports helped you growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And is this a high-paying job or is this a volunteer job? Explain that.
I'm paid in satisfaction.
Nice.
And gratification. There's no monetary exchange.
Well, now I want to dive a little bit deeper into a situation that happened to you as the administrator out at Sharptown. Obviously, this is a volunteer position, but at one time, this job of yours, this commitment, was almost taken from you from the county executive. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
I want to hear more when we come back. Can we dive a little bit deeper into what caused that situation and where you stand today?
Yes.
So stay with us. I want to spend some more time with Mark Carroll, the Director of Parks and Recreation from Sharptown. I want to find out more about this story, what happened to him, what role the county executive played, and where does he see the future of Sharptown Parks and Rec. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Sharptown in Wycomico County is home to two side-by-side parks along the banks of the Upper Nanticoke River. Just a 15-minute drive northwest of Salisbury, Cherry Beach Park and Cope Bennett Park offer an assortment of recreational opportunities and special events that will please children and adults alike. Cherry Beach and Cope Bennett Parks are located next to the Route 313 bridge spanning the Nanticoke River and are connected by a pleasant walking trail along the riverfront. From both parks, you'll get unique views of the high overhead bridge, and if your timing is right, you'll get a close-up look at tugboats pushing enormous barges up and down the Nanticoke River between Seaford, Delaware, and destinations all around the Chesapeake Bay. If you're a boater or fisherman, then Cherry Beach Park is the place for you. The boat ramp provides easy access to the protected waters of the Upper Nanticoke, where many fishermen pursue freshwater species not typically found further downriver. And if you're a hardcore fisherman, you won't want to miss the catfish and invasive species tournaments hosted at Cherry Beach every year. There's no charge for use of the boat ramp and plenty of parking is available. Additionally, Cherry Beach has a soft launch for kayaks and canoes, but be mindful of the river's strong tidal currents before setting out. If you don't have a boat, just a short walk downriver from Cope Bennett Park is a public fishing area along the bank where no fishing license is required, in addition to a fishing pier, which is a converted section of the old bridge. This is a terrific place to enjoy a leisurely day of fishing, and don't forget to sign up the little ones for the Kids Fishing Derby held every September. And any place called Cherry Beach has to have a beach, right? Of course it does. Although you may have to bring your own cherries, you can relax and catch some rays on Cherry Beach's white sands while getting relief from the summer heat by taking a dip in the cool waters of the Upper Nanticoke River. If you're an active sports enthusiast, at Cope Bennett Park you'll find a lighted softball diamond as well as pickleball and tennis courts. Cope Bennett also hosts an annual pickleball tournament as well as an outdoor family movie night in the spring and fall and the ever-popular Halloween party in October. One of the year's biggest events, Sharptown Heritage Day, is held every September at Cherry Beach Park. This family-friendly event features fireworks, food and craft vendors, history exhibits, a parade, and a whole lot more. Both Cope Bennett Park and Cherry Beach Park are improved with children's playgrounds, in addition to pavilions with picnic tables for gatherings with family and friends. Just bring your own barbecue grill. Cherry Beach Park is entirely funded by pavilion rentals, and all park staff are volunteers. So plan your next family outing at Cherry Beach and help support this amazing recreational facility. For more information on Cherry Beach Park, visit the Sharptown Recreation and Parks website. Additional information about Cope Bennett Park is available on the Wicomico Recreation Parks and Tourism website. This is Mike Goldberg for Open Agenda.
Welcome back to Open Agenda. I'm your host, Joe White. In studio with me, sticking around, is Mark Carroll, the Director of Parks and Rec from Sharptown. Thank you for staying.
Sure. That was a great segment you had in between there.
Oh, was? Yeah, you like that?
Yeah. I'm not editing, so I'll be surprised.
It's along with everybody else. So I want to find out more about what your role as the Director of Sharptown Parks and Rec and the story with the West Metro Core Park, and just how that evolved into, at some point, your role almost being eliminated in Sharptown.
Sure. It's a very complex and long story, so I'll summarize it as best I can. We had become aware that the park was being developed and planned and everything like that.
Now, this park, it's on Levin to Shield Road. And it's called the West Metro Core Park, but it's actually in the Tri-Town area, which includes Sharptown, Hebron, and Mardella. Is that right?
That's true. It is in the Tri-Town planning area.
But it's been billed as the West Metro Core Park.
Yes.
Okay. So continue, please. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, it's all right. So we thought that there wasn't enough representation from the Tri-Town area in the park planning, and we raised some objections.
How did you become aware that there even was a plan?
We were told it was in the works because at our meetings at the time, we had a county representative that would come to our recreation meetings, every meeting, and we were told something was in the works, and they were working on a plan, and that they would have a public reveal date at some point in the future, and then they sent us the press release to let us know when that was going to be.
But when the press release came out, it did not offer any specifics of the plan, but you later found out about the plan from a Facebook post with the West Salisbury Little League?
Yes, that's true. That's how we initially found out about it, which was discouraging because I guess we kind of thought that first meeting was going to be more open and that there would be more plans presented and that we would have more of an input.
So the first meeting you're talking about was the one at Rockawalken Church.
Yes.
But by this point, there really already was an initial concept that included input from West Salisbury Little League amongst some other folks, but did not have any input specifically from the Parks and Rec Department in Hebron, Mardella, or Sharptown, at least to your knowledge.
No, that's correct. And yeah, they did not have any input either.
So were you surprised at the first town hall meeting that the executive hosted?
Yes, I was, mostly because I thought that there was going to be several plans and that there was going to be a dialogue and a discussion about it, there was only one plan.
What did the plan look like?
It was baseball fields with soccer fields set into the outfields of the baseball fields.
Now, I saw the plan later. I did not see it. I was not at the first meeting. I was at the second one, but basically the outlay was a humongous rectangle.
Yes.
A rectangle large enough for 6 baseball fields.
Yes.
Artificial turf, I believe, and then these fields could be, if desired, could be converted to square fields, whether for field hockey, soccer, lacrosse, if there wasn't home run fences put over the center of this rectangle. Is
Yes.
that accurate?
That's exactly what we saw.
So this is about the same time I became aware of the project, actually through your Parks and Rec department that works closely with the Parks and Rec departments that I volunteer with. This was about the same time that you asked for maybe input from other folks who are volunteers, boots on the ground. Tell me a little bit about what happened next, especially leading into the second town hall meeting at Mardella Fire Department.
Well, since we felt we weren't being represented, we we issued a statement. Sharptown, Mardella, and Hebron issued a statement.
Well, how do you do that?
We issued a press release.
Okay. I mean, you did personally?
No. It was the recreation department. Anything that goes through that is we vote on everything, and any responses to the press, everyone voted on how to respond back. There was an email chain about how to answer any inquiries or things like that. That's our department is run that way, where anything that comes out from it publicly has been approved by the department as a whole. In fact, me being here, I am the director of the Recreation and Parks when I'm not representing the Recreation and Parks. So
This is your personal experience.
yes, this is just my personal experience.
But your Recreation and Parks meetings there in Sharptown, are they open to the public?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you do all your business in a transparent format? You have to take votes and you talk about your financial statement and that sort of thing?
Yes, and we go over the minutes from previous meetings. We approve the minutes, approve the financials, and it all gets entered into the public record.
So you keep minutes?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess you have a secretary and all that.
Yes. Okay. Secretary, treasurer. Yep.
So you're talking about this press release. What role did Hebron and Mardella play in the press release that came from the Sharptown Parks and Rec?
They actually they helped us word a lot of it. We sent that around to them to see if they wanted to add anything to it or change the way some things were worded, and they did, and then sent us back what they thought was what they wanted to say or how they wanted to be represented.
So at the initial Rockawalken church meeting, the one where you actually got to see the baseball only plan or baseball centric plan for the first time, what was the press coverage like after that meeting prior to your press release coming out?
The press coverage after that was very baseball centric, despite the tone of the meeting being more rectangle based support.
So you don't think that the local media captured the essence of the feedback that the public had at the meeting?
No, and it was very strange, and it caught us off guard because it did not. That was not the tone of the meeting.
So did it change after your press release that came out from Hebron, Sharptown, and Mardella?
No, it didn't. And we got some media coverage, and it was 2 weeks after that, which was outside of the survey window, which is what we were trying to get in. We were trying to get it in before the survey was closed so that we would have a larger group respond on our behalf.
So the presence at the Mardella Fire Department meeting, the hearing, or not the hearing, the town hall that happened, it was the second hearing or second town hall. What was the public outcry at that time for the most part? I mean, obviously there were some folks there who were supportive of baseball, but what was the majority?
It was majority soccer.
Yeah.
Soccer, rectangle-based sports.
Are you against having baseball fields in Wycomico County?
No, not at all. We have a lot. It's just a matter of what do we have already and what do we need now.
Well, I mean, how would you describe the soccer playing field experience in Wycomico County for youth sports now versus, say, 20 years ago when you were playing?
When I was playing, I feel like there was a field everywhere. I used to play games at the complex under the lights, which was always, I still remember the way those night games smell. You know what I mean? That cool.
They had
air.
4 fields there, right? All lit.
Yeah.
What's there now?
They took those out about 8 to 10 years ago and put in baseball fields, I believe, or softball
fields.
Yeah.
Those fields now are mostly used for tournament play, outside tournament play. In fact, I coach youth girls softball, and our opening day for many years was pushed back to Mother's Day weekend because that was one of the few weekends that the complex wasn't booked out for an outside tournament. So we would play like 2 weeks of the season, then have our opening day out at the Parker complex like 2 weeks in. We had all these softball fields, but they're really made for tournament play, not for youth sports.
Yes.
So it's a shame. I mean, baseball was always my passion, but I did play soccer under the lights at the Parker Complex, and it was really cool. It was probably my favorite part of playing soccer.
Oh yeah.
So
That, and I liked going when I was younger. I liked going out to the outer towns to play. I loved playing down at Cedar Hill. That was always a fun experience. I don't know if my parents shared in the joy of having to drive all the way out there, but I remember just being in the back of the car, just super excited that we were.
well, it
going out.
might have been when gas was only $1, so maybe not as big a deal.
Yeah.
So you talk about how important it was for you to have that youth sports experience, night games, the whole experience, right? Does your youth soccer program have that now in Sharptown?
Oh yes, actually we're very lucky because we have one lit field in Sharptown. It is the outfield of a baseball field, but we've made it work.
Is it still used for softball very often now?
In the springs, yes.
Yeah.
And then we also started a kickball program in the spring for
Okay.
adults. So we have that as well. So it gets used most of the year. So we do have that.
So even though
lighted
you don't
field.
have the Parker Complex anymore, you still give your kids that experience.
Yes, absolutely. And then we have another park with no lights that has larger, more fields that we can play on.
So we've kind of laid the groundwork about where the situation was, and ultimately the final conceptual plan that the engineers came was a hybrid system that had phase one had square or rectangular fields. But that really wasn't the end of the story for you. There were some ramifications from your involvement in getting this press release out and getting the public to understand where things were. So what happened there?
Well, the county executive and some others, I believe Bunky, and,
Loughlin?
yeah,
Okay.
and
The director of administration.
yes, and maybe one or two other people that I'm not sure who they are. They called a meeting with the president of the commissioners of Sharptown.
Kind of like your mayor.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. And he thought that they were calling the meeting to discuss the park. Because at this point, I had been going to town meetings and saying, hey, this is technically our park. It's in our planning area. We should have a lot of say in this. We should be represented in this. So he was aware of the situation. And so they sat down and they met. And the purpose of the meeting was not to discuss the park. The purpose of the meeting was for them to tell him that if he didn't get rid of Mark Carroll, then the county was done with Sharptown.
So they weren't going to support the programming or the maintenance of the parks out in Sharptown for the kids to use?
It was very, from what I understand, the threat was vague, and it wasn't there wasn't anything specific that was said, because there are obligations that they would need to fulfill because the parks are owned by the county in Sharptown. The soccer park and the baseball park are both county parks. So I'm not sure exactly what the implication would have been. And he told me this immediately afterwards. And then the commissioners asked him in a subsequent meeting of the town. So it's also on their minutes as well.
Well, speaking
that
of
this happened.
minutes,
Yes.
were you accused of falsifying minutes?
Yeah, actually, so I guess what happened with that threat, because the president of our commissioners is a man of integrity. He's a good man, and he stood up for me, and he told them he was not going to get rid of me. Actually, what's interesting is that my position, I'm triple vetted. In order to become the president of the Recreation and Parks, I have to be approved as a member by the commissioners of Sharptown. I then have to be elected by the other people. I have to be chosen and elected by the other people in the commission who had to go through the same thing.
Okay.
And then once I am voted in, I go back to the commissioner to say, hey, is this guy president material? I have to be approved 3 times before I'm
For a job that you don't get paid
for
for.
a job I don't get paid for. Yes.
I want to find out more about the county executive's accusations that you actually falsified minutes from the Parks and Rec department there in Sharptown.
Yes. So that was a very surprising meeting. I did not expect that to happen. I never thought the county executive was going to show up to a Recreation and Parks meeting in Sharptown on a Wednesday night. But that's what happened. The county executive showed up to our meeting. And I guess this was the aftermath of our being stood up for by our president of the commissioners. And so she showed up to tell us that they were no longer sending a county representative to our meetings after I don't know how long, maybe 10 or 15 years. There's always a county representative in our meeting. We weren't going to have one anymore. And then she said that she accused us of being abusive to the representative, and we assured her that we had not, and that she could check the records and check our minutes. At which point she said that our minutes were all false and contained misinformation, and that we were manipulating the public record.
So that must have been hard to hear after you had already been through quite a bit. I want to find out more of just about what kind of position that put you in, and maybe even what peril that put the youth sports programming in Sharptown in. But I also want to get an update about actually where you're at now, what the future of Sharptown Parks and Recreation is. Would you stick around one more segment?
Yeah, sure.
When we come back, we're going to spend just a few more minutes with Mark Carroll and find out exactly where Sharptown Parks and Rec is today and where do they see themselves going into the future. Stay with us. We'll be right back. So after we shot this episode of Open Agenda with Mark Carroll, he actually reached out to us. Part of that interview was a little bit tough to watch. Joe, I'm going to ask you to read Mark's statement. It's a little long, but I think it actually expresses his true feelings really well.
Sure. Again, these are the words of Mr. Mark Carroll and what he sent to us regarding that segment. I apologize for losing my composure during our interview. It has been over a year since everything happened, and I thought enough time had passed that I could talk about it openly without it affecting me emotionally. Clearly, that's not the case. You asked me how it felt when the county executive tried to have me fired from my volunteer position. When the county executive targeted me, it was overwhelming, both emotionally and mentally. It felt like the weight of the entire county was against me. I began questioning everything I had done, every conversation, every decision, every move I had made in my role as a volunteer. I thought I must have done something wrong, but in hindsight, that wasn't true. I was targeted simply because my department asked for transparency and inclusion, values that should be at the core of any government. Instead of addressing these concerns, the county executive chose to cut off our communication by removing our county liaison from our meetings, showing up to make false accusations, and even accusing us of falsifying documents. It not only upset me, but also a room full of dedicated volunteers who were just trying to make a positive impact in our community. At the time, I didn't fully understand the weight of what was happening, but looking back, it's clear that the county executive's actions were an abuse of power. When an elected official can retaliate against individuals or departments simply for advocating for transparency, it reveals a deeper issue within the system. The actions I experienced weren't just personal attacks. They were a misuse of the position itself to silence opposition. And that's why the lack of accountability in this role is so troubling. If it happened to me, it could happen to others. Even though I wasn't fired, I almost quit. The experience took a toll, not just on me, but on my family as well. It got in the way of my work, and it disrupted my ability to plan for the soccer program. I came close to walking away entirely. The only reason I didn't quit was because many people, friends, colleagues, and volunteers, reminded me of what would be lost if I left. Their support kept me going, but the emotional cost of this experience was profound. The most troubling part was there was no way to challenge this. The council had no power to intervene, and I was left feeling powerless. The lack of accountability is what hurt me the most, not just for me, but for others as well. I know many county employees who were afraid to attend town halls or speak up because they feared for their jobs. This atmosphere of fear and intimidation is not how government should operate. What I realized through all of this is that the problem isn't just the individual in the position, it's the position itself. The county executive has too much unchecked power, and anyone in that role could abuse it in the same way. This isn't how government should function, especially not in America. Government positions should serve the people, not silence them. We the people have an opportunity to correct this. We can vote for question A. My experience demonstrates that the county executive position as it stands lacks the necessary checks and balances to ensure accountability. Years ago, voters supported the creation of the position because we thought it would balance power between the council and the executive. But now it's clear the position is all checks and no balances. It allows one person to control too much without being answerable to the people they're supposed to serve. Voting for question A is an opportunity to correct this imbalance and return power to the people. A transfer of power that the opposition refers to as a power grab. The position of county executive should not be used to intimidate or silence anyone, and a county manager, someone qualified, accountable, and able to be removed if they abuse their power, is a far better solution. This isn't just about my experience. It's about protecting everyone in the community from an unchecked system. No one should ever have to go through what I did just for expressing an opposing viewpoint.
Joe, thank you for taking the time to read Mark's statement. And I also want to reach out and thank Mark Carroll for coming in the studio. As we have talked to several county employees, folks in the community, we have realized just how incredibly difficult it is to stand up at the podium, stand up for yourself, but we want you to know there is a community out there that is supportive of you. We'll be back next week with another episode of Open Agenda. Thank you.